Hey, welcome to the show. You're in for a special episode today. Today, we're talking about the 4 key elements of being a children's authorpreneur. What does that mean? How can you do it? Well, stick around. It's going to be great. Welcome to the Children's Author Show. If you ever dreamed of writing a book that inspires young minds, builds a lasting brand, and even creates a sustainable career, then you're in the right place. From crafting unforgettable stories, to marketing your books, to even monetizing your brand, we'll cover everything that you need to succeed as a children's author. So grab your notebook, fuel that creativity, and let's make your author dreams a reality. This is the Children's Author Show. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Children's Author Show. I'm your host, Andy Coates, award-winning children's author, book coach, and your host of the Children's Author Show. And this is a show where we explore the world of children's books, helping authors just like you to grow, to learn, and succeed in this very incredible industry. And whether you're just starting out or you're looking to grow, you are in the right place. And today, we're going to jump into the game-changing topic for anyone who dreams of turning their passion for writing into a full-time career. Today, we're talking about becoming an authorpreneur. So let's start here. What is an authorpreneur? Well, it's an author who doesn't just write books, but they build a business. They scale, they market, they treat their writing career like a professional endeavor instead of just a hobby. But here's the catch. You don't determine the speed at which you scale in this business. In most businesses, we like to expedite and jump through those hoops as quick as we can. In this business, you don't determine the speed of scaling. That's up to the market, that's up to opportunities, and ultimately, it's up to timing. And you can't control those factors. What we can control is the quality of work, our willingness to show up, our ability to take risk, and our creativity. Think of your author career like a boat, if you will. You can't control the waves or the wind. But what you can make sure of is that your boat is strong enough that it can weather the storms and that it can be ready to ride the tides whenever those opportunities do come. So today, we're focusing on building that strong boat, if you will, or that strong foundation for our business. To be an authorpreneur, it's treating it like a business. So today, we're focusing on building a strong foundation. So let's talk about what I call the 4 essential pillars, if you will, of being an authorpreneur. That sound good? All right, well, let's jump into it. We're going to start number 1. You need a brand that's customized to you. It has to be yours. Because a brand isn't just a cool logo or a catchy name. It's what people think about when they hear your name, your brand, your business. It's what they think about. And most of the time, that's not going to be some cool logo or some catchy phrase or whatever, or even catchy name. It's going to be an experience they've had or what they've learned from your brand or gained value-wise from your brand. And your brand should be uniquely you. In this business, we're not building a franchise. We're building it around who we are. So it needs to be unique to you. What makes your stories, your personality, your message, what makes those things stand out? Are you a fun and kind of wacky author who brings stories to life in a big and exaggerated way? Is that you? Or are you a thoughtful, inspiring writer who wants to just encourage kids to dream big or face challenges or difficulties? What is it for you? You need to be able to define what makes you and your brand unique from everyone else. And your brand, it needs to be consistent. There needs to be consistency there, a dependability. That means everything from your social media presence to the way that you interact at events. It should reflect your unique style. And if you're not sure what your brand is yet, and you're like, I don't know what makes me unique, Well, let me give you some helpful suggestions here. Start by asking yourself, what themes kind of run through or come out of my books? What messages are consistent that I enjoy to help teach and train and equip kids with? Or maybe ask yourself, what kind of experience do I hope that kids will have when they read my books? What am I hoping that kids gain from this? Maybe for you, you're passionate about helping kids understand their value and their worth. And maybe that's part of the experience you want to create for those kids as they read your resources. Then that might be part of your brand. Or maybe you ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be the anti-bullying author? Do you want to be that exciting cheerleader, you can do this author? Or like for myself, do you want to be that adventurous author? What is it for you? Figure out what is it for you that you want to be known for. And once you can look at all those factors, and not just those, there's many other questions you can begin to ask yourself to figure out what is it unique about you. Once you're able to work through some of those things, you need to be able to define what is your brand. You've got to be able to define it. To say, this is my brand. This is what I am trying to build, what I'm trying to accomplish in my brand. And once you define it, you need to own it. It ought to be weaved into everything you do. It needs to be customized to you, and you need to have it be a part of everything that you do, from school visits to festivals, everything in between. It needs to reflect you, and that brand needs to be owned by you. Nobody can sell your business and your brand like you can. And, you don't have to do what I do. You don't have to take the elements I have and try to replicate them, because it won't work for you, because you're not me. Just like I can't do what you need to do for your brand. So while I would love to help authors, I talk about this when I'm coaching authors. I want to be able to help you, but me coming into your brand is only going to make your brand look like me. So when I step out of your brand and you step back into that role, it will not reflect you. It'll reflect me. And you can't sustain that. For me, I love big crowds. I love high energy. I love social environments. I love to interact with kids and parents and librarians and teachers. And, I love adventure. So all those things make up my brand. I'm heavily involved in those things. What about you? Maybe for you, you're like, all those things sound terrifying to me. Well, then you need to be able to build a brand around what works for you. And your brand needs to reflect you first and foremost. And if you're like, well, what if I'm a shy, quiet person and I don't want to interact with authors and librarians and teachers and the audience? Well, then if your brand, it either needs to reflect you, or you're going to have to take some steps to grow and develop so that you can reflect what you want your brand to be. So when you figure out, okay, who am I and what do I want from my brand? Once you figure that out, then what you need to do then is, okay, does my brand need to change to reflect me, or do I need to change to reflect my brand and where I'm trying to go? What you don't want to happen is that, I use the analogy I heard many years ago, is I don't want to put a ladder onto a building and spend all that effort climbing that ladder only to find that ladder is leaning against the wrong building. If you're going to spend all the effort to climb this ladder in your publishing journey, let's make sure that it's the exact place you want to end up. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it needs to be customized to you if you want it to be sustainable. If this is going to last, if it's going to continue, if you're going to be able to sustain this for the long haul, and now it may grow over time with you, but if it's going to sustain for the long haul, it needs to be customized to you. And part of that customization might be, does the brand need to better reflect me, or do I need to work to better reflect the brand? Number 2, you need to establish trust and consistency with your audience. I probably should have put this as number 1, because trust is the most valuable thing that we can have in this industry. That trust and consistency as an author is huge. Readers, parents, teachers, librarians, they need to trust you. Can they trust that you will do what you should do? Can they trust that you're going to deliver quality, that you're going to deliver quality stories, quality endings to your book, quality illustrations, quality editing, quality book covers, quality school visits, presentations? Quality matters. And that trust, it comes from consistency, showing up regularly, whether that's on social media or in schools or at book festivals. It's the consistency. That's what makes you reliable. On whatever platform you choose to build this on, you need to be consistently showing up. Not everybody is built for social media or being in front of a camera or on a platform. That may not be your primary platform that you want to develop, but you need to find your platform and you need to show up regularly. And if you don't have that consistency, you will not be a trusted brand to your audience. And sometimes that consistency of showing up is also that when you're producing books, that if you leave your audience hanging, a quality ending, that you left them hanging, and it takes you years before you get the next book out, they're probably going to fall off before you get to a third or fourth book in that series. So it's about showing up in both your writing and in your branding. Consistency. That's what's going to make you reliable to your audience, delivering that quality and consistency every time. Again, whether that's in your books, your presentations, your writing, your emails to your audience, we want to make sure that we are offering that value of quality and consistency, that we're reliable. And some of that's going to mean you're going to have to engage a little bit. And maybe for some of you, for me, I'm an extrovert. And some of you're more than likely, most readers, and especially, or most writers, and especially if you're a writer and illustrator, a lot of times writers, authors and illustrators who are both are very much introverts, that they want to get in there, they want to write and they want to draw, and they don't want to interact. They don't want to engage. For some of you, that means you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit to engage. But when you're doing that, be consistent and engage in what works for you. On your platform, with your audience, what works for you. And once you figure that out, be consistent with it. To responding to, to messages and comments and reviews. Sometimes you may want to say, hey, these messages and comments and reviews, I don't have to be in front of people, but I can be the best at making sure that comments get answered and messages get responded to and emails get sent out on time. And that if somebody reviews, I say, thank you for your review. And you build a relationship that way. For me, I want to be one-on-one, in person, with the person, having the conversation. And for me, that's where I love to engage. Where is it for you? Own it. Own it. And be consistent. Keep showing up. Be reliable. Build those relationships, because relationships, that's what's going to lead to opportunities. So whatever that consistency looks like for you, showing up and producing that quality and building those relationships, that's what's going to lead to opportunities. And that's going to be part of what helps to build this solid foundation, this solid boat, that when the opportunities show up, we're there and ready for them. And over time, as people see you consistently showing up and delivering, they start to recognize you as a trusted brand. It goes beyond just even you as a trusted individual or a trusted author, but now your brand is trusted. So maybe you finish up a series and you start into a new one. Because you've gained the trust as a brand, the fact that you are producing a new series, it can be trusted. They know that you're going to handle it with quality because it has your brand, your stamp on it. Because you've done that over time, you've built the consistency of showing up and delivering quality, and now that reliability is there with your audience. Number 3 is you need to treat this like a business and not a hobby. Now, this is probably one of the most difficult things for most authors to step into. Because for most, really just most people in general, running a business is not their thing. For most people, they want to go and they want to clock in and clock out. They'll go do a job and then be able to step away. For most of us, even in the writing world, we want to write a book and we want to submit that and put it out there to the world and then step away. But the reality is this is a business, especially if you're self-publishing, because you immediately put on the CEO hat. You become the CEO of your business. But the reality is, even if you're traditionally publishing, you've got to treat this like a business and not a hobby. And let's get real for a second. If you treat your author career like a hobby, then it's going to pay you like a hobby. So even if you're traditionally published, if you treat this like a hobby and not like a business, it's going to pay you like a hobby. But if you treat it like a business, it has the potential to grow like a business grows. So let's talk for just a second here about being the difference between that hobby author versus what I've been referring to as being an authorpreneur. What's the differences there? Well, a hobby author, they write something when they feel like writing something. Whenever I feel like it, I'm going to go sit down and write. And so a manuscript may take years to write and produce. Well, an authorpreneur, they create a writing schedule and they stick to their deadlines because this is a business. I've got to be able to produce. So I'm going to step into it. And it's not just when I feel like it. And because if we go by that hobby mindset, when we feel like writing, there's going to be many days that we don't feel like doing it, or something else will feel better than writing. Something else will catch our attention. We'll want to do that instead of writing, especially if we're in a place where we're getting into the story where we're like, I'm ready to move on and I can't figure this out and I'm finding those roadblocks in my story. And it's got to take some time to work through that stuff. If we're in that place, it's easy to be like, yeah, I'll try this again tomorrow. But if we're an entrepreneur, we've got deadlines. And so we've got to push through, even if that means producing a sloppy copy that we just get words on the page and we're going to come back to figuring it out because we've got a writing schedule that we're working from. A hobby author also, they just hope that their books are going to sell. They finish the manuscript. It may be clean and pretty and put together, and they get it published and it's out there to the world, and they just hope that it's going to fly off the shelf. Where an authorpreneur, like they're going to look at this and say, hey, I've got to market my book consistently and learn about strategies of how I can grow and build an audience, and then consistently show up to that audience and find ways at which different platforms to which I can talk about my book and grow and build my platform as an author, that I have an audience who's ready and willing to read my books as they come out. If you are a famous author, you think some of the large authors out there, Stephen King, when he writes a book, he doesn't have to do a whole lot. One, because his publishing company, they are doing a lot of the marketing for him. But he's also Stephen King, and we're not. So for us as that entrepreneur, we're trying to build our business. That means we've got to take the ownership of going out there and making sure that our book sells. And that's we're either going to throw a lot of money into running ads and marketing that way. And I would say to you, if you're not the kind of person that wants to get out in front of people and be at these festivals and being at school visits and all that, you need to get really, really, really good at figuring out how to maximize the efficiency of running ads. But do what works for you. Figure out your brand, what works for you, and then where you maybe have a struggle, let's find people who we can have on our team that can help us in those areas of our weakness. Another thing that a hobby author does is a hobby author will see school visits as optional. And I would say to you that as an entrepreneur, school visits are mandatory. In some capacity, you need to be in schools. Again, I love large assemblies. That's how I like to do it. But you need to figure out what works for you. Maybe that's getting someone who's really good at communicating, a friend of yours, to come with you and they interview you at a school so that they can take on the platform presence and you just answer a bunch of questions that you can have ready to go. And so they feel the awkward silence and they can help get the kids hyped up and excited and engaged, and you're able to just be the celebrity there, the special author, and they're handling the personal side of that. So figure out what works for you. I'll have a whole video that we're going to have out there for you that you need to check out about school visits and how to maximize that for your brand. But a hobby author sees these as optional, where an entrepreneur sees them as mandatory. You've got to do them because they see them as income producing opportunities and brand building opportunities. I've had a lot of opportunities come from school visits, and I've had a lot of returning visits to schools because I showed up the one time. And we'll get into all that in the school visits. But it's a hobby author ultimately just sees them as optional, where an entrepreneur says these are mandatory. And that doesn't mean that, like in this journey of looking at being a hobby author versus an entrepreneur, it doesn't mean that this is all about just making money. But if you want to sustain this writing career for the long haul, if you want this to be a long-term thing that you're a part of, that you're building a brand or business, this isn't just a hobby or some passion project, then you have to treat this like a business, which means you need to be bringing in revenue, which means you need to be making money. And if we're leaving a lot of opportunities on the table because we haven't done the work and put the work in to show up and to allow it opportunities to make money, then that falls back on us. And that's really, it's just a hobby at that point. Remember this, the easiest way is probably to think about the hobby versus entrepreneur like you would any other hobby. Think of your other hobbies that you have, whether that's golf or, sewing or whatever it might be, that's just a hobby for you. If it's just a hobby, hobbies ultimately cost you time and they cost you money. Most guys out there who are playing golf, for them, golf is a hobby and they spend a lot of time and a lot of money, and never are they making money at this hobby. Very few golfers end up playing on the pro circuit and the pro tours because it's just a hobby for them. They're going out there playing and they have a good time. They love it out there. They're enjoying it, but it's costing them time and money. They're not walking away having earned something from it. Again, maybe you had a good time. And hey, maybe you're in this and you're like, I just want to produce this book for me to have a good time. I want this for my kids or grandkids. Then that's okay too. But just realize that it's going to cost you time and it's going to cost you money. And it's not going to bring the money in if it's like a hobby. Same thing for illustrations. I get asked this a lot about, do I really need to spend the kind of money on those real high quality illustrations? And the answer is, well, it depends. It depends on whether or not you're treating this like a hobby or a business. If it's a hobby, if this is just for your kids or grandkids, then, sure, I guess use AI or pay someone, a 13-year-old kid down the street who's taken 2 art classes to draw this for you. Yeah, sure, if that's what you want. But realize it may cost you time and money, and you'll be just as happy with that for your kids or grandkids as you would if you paid the big money. Probably happier because it didn't cost you the big money. But if you're wanting this to be a product as part of your business to earn money and be in the commercial marketplace and competitive, then you're going to have to treat it like a business. And what businesses do is they leverage time and money. Hobbies cost time and money. Businesses leverage time and money to make profits and to grow a satisfied customer base. Customers who are going to be satisfied but also keep coming back. They're return customers. So we can either treat it like a hobby and it costs us time and money, or we treat it like a business and we're going to leverage time and money to maximize those profits and grow that satisfied customer base. Number 4, you need to become the expert. Once you've built your brand and you've built this audience, it's time to take it up a notch. You don't want to, if you're in this to build a brand and build a business, you want to see this making money for you and being a possible career path for you, whether that's part-time or full-time, then you don't want to just be an author. You want to be the author in your space. You want to be the go-to person for schools, for libraries, for conferences. You want them to call you when they need an expert to come in and talk about being an author, or how to overcome those roadblocks or those moments where you're just locked up and you need to push through difficult times where you got that writer's block, and you need to be the go-to person. That when someone says, in recording this, I just got an opportunity that popped up because somebody was having a conversation about school visits, and they're like, we want to bring an author in, but we don't know who to bring in. And the lady who referred me to this school, she said, oh my gosh, you need to get Andy Coates. Like, that's what he does. He loves to be in schools. You need to get Andy to come. So I closed out their Read Around America week at the end of a week, having a bunch of authors, and I was the finale for them because somebody saw me as the go-to person in my region for school visits. So you need to become that go-to person for schools, libraries, conferences, whatever it might be that fits to your brand. Again, you don't have to do exactly how I do it, but you still need to be the go-to person. Whether that's they're asking advice or maybe to write an article or they want you to be on a panel or whatever that might be, you need to be the go-to person. And here's how you do that. Number one, as we've discussed, you need to be consistent and you need to be present. You need to attend those local book festivals and events. I know for a lot of people, they think these are going to be money-making opportunities. And I would say to you, really, and again, this will be in, I'm going to have that video for school visits and events, but these book festivals and events, really, they are opportunities to network and to show up. That's really what they're all about. You want to show up in your community for your community. They need to see you. You need to be a local presence. In my city where I live, we have a couple of big name authors that are from this area, but they're never at any of those events. They're never at the networking opportunities. They never want to be on panels. They never want to judge different contests. They just don't want to show up for that stuff because they're busy. And, some of them they've got large platforms now that so being present locally, they're not the go-to people anymore. So while they may have a larger name in the author space to our local community, it's not as much because they don't show up. So you need to show up in your community and for your community. People need to see you actively engaged and that you're taking this seriously, that this is a business. This isn't just something you do on the side. It's like, oh yeah, I also write books. It needs to be that you are an author. You're a children's author, that you're taking it seriously. Ultimately, you don't become the expert overnight. We know that, right? It takes practice. So speaking engagements, workshops, school visits, all these things, you're not going to do it great the first time. It's going to take time to build your expertise in these areas. For me, I spent 10 years traveling and doing camps for 12 to 15 weeks during the summertime, and I spent many weekends at different retreats and events. For a decade, on a stage, engage with kids, learning how to communicate that reaches kids and gets them excited and entertains them and can be funny. I had to learn how to do that, and it took over a decade for me to sharpen those tools and master that craft of how to engage the audience. And I transferred that over into my school visits. And I'm still learning some unique things that I didn't think even existed within school visits of how to improve and get better at them. It takes time. And every time you do it, you're gonna, if you fine tune it and you work on the craft, you're going to be able to refine your skills. And in doing so, you're going to build some credibility because you're getting better and better at it. And it's going to take you some time. So use all these things, these speaking engagements, workshops, school visits, let them be your training ground at becoming an expert. Every time you go do one of these events, every time you speak, every time you do a workshop, you need to evaluate what worked, what didn't work, where can I improve, and then make those adjustments. And as I've mentioned before, you need to play to you, play to your strengths. If you love performing, lean into live storytelling, or like I do big presentations, lean into that. If you love the performing side, lean into it. Maybe you're a musician and you can bring a singing element or an instrumental element to it, lean into that. Do what works for you. And if maybe for you, it's the knowledge base of your storytelling. Play to your strengths on what you know, and you bring someone else to help entertain, and you be the expert. And maybe for you, it's getting on panels in colleges, and you're working with colleges to talk about children's author publishing, all those kind of things. Play to your strengths. If you're a teacher at heart, I know a lot of authors who start out as teachers, whether it's preschool teachers or elementary teachers. These children's authors, many of them come from an educational background. That might be you. If you're a teacher at heart, lean into it. Create workshops and things that captivate and educate and have those different elements into it, because schools love that stuff. If you can bring in the educational piece that adds to their curriculum development, man, you're a home run for them when it comes to the opportunities you can have working with the school to help grow, advance, and develop. And they can work you into their schedule a whole lot easier and a whole lot better when it comes to bringing you in for like school visits. So lean into it. Play to your strengths. If public speaking is your thing, use it. If it isn't your thing, then build your brand through things like blogging or maybe even podcasting. Maybe for you, you'd be okay behind a camera because you can do as many takes as you want to for this. So you're like, I'll just edit that thing and it maybe take me 3 hours to record, but it's just me by myself in the room. Nobody else is here. Then lean into that. Maybe it is something like that. Or maybe it's digital resources. Whatever it is, you need to customize it to you and play to your strengths. And where your strength is, maximize it. And where there's some weakness, you need to try to grow in that, or surround yourself with people who can help you in those areas, because we still need to have presence inside this industry in things like schools and stuff like that. So even if you're not the school king or queen, you still need to have a presence in the school world, and you need to figure that out based on your strengths and your brand. Which leads me kind of in this, as I mentioned, is the next piece of this of becoming an expert. It's not about you knowing everything and you being the best at everything. It's also about you building a team around you that your brand becomes the expert. So as you grow, you're going to need help around you, whether that's an assistant or someone help with social media or graphic designs. Especially nowadays, as much graphic stuff is required to put us out on social media. You need to be producing different graphics and then content out there for social media consumption. You may need to have someone on your team that just focuses on that. So don't be afraid to bring people in who can complement your skills. For me, I do a lot of sloppy copy production. I get everything I can on paper, and then I'm going to come back and I'll do an edit on it, and I'm going to go through that a couple of times myself, and then I send that off to my editor. Now, I've gotten better over the years at refining that down before I send it off to my editor to chop it up and help me with development stuff, but also just making sure I put punctuation in the right place and my grammar's not terrible. But I need an editor because I'm a speed reader. So when I read a book, my mind naturally doesn't include the articles. So A, N, and D, my mind just gets rid of those. And it skips over some words, and it looks in chunks of statements versus individual words. Most readers go left to right and they read word to word, where I'm looking at, almost line by line, if not two sections of each line. So I read the left side of a line, the right side of a line, and that's how I'll go through an entire book, where most people read every word on the line. My mind has learned to block some of those words out to put together the sentence. And research have shown that even the comprehension rate on that still is just as great, if not greater, than those who read word for word. But when I'm doing that, it affects my writing. So sometimes I leave out a lot of necessary grammatical elements that need to be there, because my mind is moving as if I'm a speed writer too, and I'm not. My hands can't keep up with what's happening in my head. So I need that editor to come in and help clean some of that stuff up. So we need to surround ourselves with a great team that's going to help complement the areas where we need that support and that help. And speaking of help, we need to be not just getting help for ourselves, but we need to be helping others out along the way. That as we learn something, we need to be generous in how we pass that information along. There's plenty of room out there for us all to grow and develop and do something great to help reach kids. Because ultimately, it's not about just building our careers, it's about making an impact in the lives of kids. And so we need to be generous with our time, with our resources, and with our knowledge that we've learned along the way. So mentoring new authors and giving back and sharing what we've learned. And when we pour into those others, you want to be able to build something that is going to help them grow and develop. But when you do that, it makes you that more trustworthy, dependable person, because you build an even stronger reputation within the industry, that you can be trusted. In fact, many of you who may be listening to this, you're listening because somewhere along the way, maybe I offered a piece of advice to you, or for my brand, you found some value because of some content that we put out there to help you grow and develop. This podcast itself is designed to give you content and a resource to help pour in and give back and to help others along the way. I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing. Give back and help out to others. Because ultimately, we're not in this for us. It's for those kids. And so the more that we can have other people, other authors growing and developing and putting out quality stuff, the better off we're going to be. So not only just becoming the expert, but you need to become that expert who is also has a great reputation for using their expertise to make an impact in the lives of others. So that's it. Those are the 4 key pillars to building your authorpreneur business. Well, all right, let's bring this home. If you want to scale your author career, then you need to focus on what you can control. You need to build that solid brand that reflects who you are. You need to show up consistently and establish trust with your audience. You need to treat this like a business and not just a hobby or some kind of passion project. If that's not what your goal is, you need to treat it like a business. And you need to step up and own your expertise to grow and develop as that expert. But then you need to step into that, because people are looking for authors who know their stuff, that they have a consistent, reliable brand, and that might as well be you. Now, before we go, if maybe you've listened today and you've started to process this, there's a lot of content that we've talked through, and there's something that's stirring, and you're like, I know there's some areas I need to make some changes. And maybe for you, you've been writing down some notes of like some areas you need to focus on, but maybe you haven't. Maybe you're still trying to process this. I know this, that if we don't take action, if we consume the content and don't take action, our business, our brand is not going to be better. So if we're going to see growth in our brand and our business, then we need to take some action. So I got a challenge for you. What's one thing that you can do this week to build your author brand? Whether that's on social media, or maybe that's reaching out to a school, whatever that is. I mean, starting to plan a workshop, or whatever it is for you. What's one thing that you can do based on the stuff we discussed today? What's a step you can take? And then I want to give you another challenge. What's one area that can stretch you in some areas where maybe you struggle? So maybe it's for you, the public speaking is a difficult thing. Maybe what's an area that you can stretch in that? Maybe that's for you, getting on a panel with other authors, or going and giving a presentation. What's something that could stretch you in your business to help build your brand? So what's one thing you can do this week to help grow the brand and build your authorpreneurship brand? And what's one area that can stretch you based on what we've discussed today? Because you're going to have to take some action. Just consuming it's not enough. You got to take the action. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please do us a huge favor. This means the world to us that you would subscribe to our channel so that you can have the consistent weekly content. If you're watching on YouTube, or maybe you just listened, go on YouTube, leave us a comment, because those comments help us provide great quality content for you as an author. So leave us a comment there. If you are trying to grow your brand, I want to encourage you. I have a top-selling resource that I have that's called the Children's Author Toolbox. And it's a great resource for children's authors who are looking to build their brand. It's full of practical strategies, industry insights, and really everything you need to go from being just a writer to becoming that recognized author or that recognized brand. So grab you a copy today. That's in the show notes. The link for that's on Amazon. Get you a copy, and let's start doing something pretty amazing together as you build your brand. So check that out. Well, thank you for tuning in today to the Children's Author Show. And until next time, I want to encourage you, keep writing, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference in the world of kids' literature. We'll see you next time.